Hello. Testing. Testing. Oh, it's not picking up much, is it? Is this recording now?
It is.
Oh.
We record all the things. And then we cut all the
things
out. Hey!
That's a great job, Christa. This is why we edit a lot of our beginning of the show.
Do you know that when I say hey, it's H-E-J? Well, I'm learning one Swedish word every 2 weeks.
Should we make this trilingual?
C'est bon?
Est-ce qu'on fera un podcast en deux langues?
It is made in Canada.
Hey, oui, on a des personnes qui, we have people who are, listening from France.
Which is actually something that's happening.
Yeah, so I read that, so...
Plus Canadian.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I can say, bienvenue à tout le monde qui écoute le podcast en France.
This is Cyber vs. Robot, and I'm Christa, and I'm a cyborg.
And I am Five, pseudo-robot, and vanity trap. And we are here with the lady doctor, Fiona. Say hello, Fiona.
Hello.
Applause for
Applause for Fiona.
Yay!
Yay! This is an inside Real Humans joke, which you won't get because you haven't seen the show. I have been hanging out with Fiona now for 5 hours, and we have not talked about this Doctor Who episode.
Great!
So it's very exciting.
Because this week we're talking about Doctor Who.
The season 8 series opener, which is called Deep Breath. And it was written by Stephen Moffat, and it was directed by Ben Wheatley.
But in fact, I was reading that it's actually the 801st episode, if you count straight from the beginning of when Doctor Who started in 1963.
Really?
Season 8 and 801.
If Wikipedia is to be believed.
Always.
This is why we have Fiona on the show. This is our first episode with a guest, and we're very excited.
I'm super excited.
Because 2 reasons. Christa has never seen a Doctor Who episode ever in her life. This is her very first one.
Which I find shocking.
That's a lie.
Oh.
Which is to say that I've lied to you.
Please tell.
Probably about many things, including this.
Mm-hmm.
I have some distant memories of seeing some Doctor Who as maybe like a toddler.
Okay.
Like we lived in this trailer park in Hollywood, Florida. That's true. And I have a memory of seeing on the television an episode of Doctor Who, and it was the guy with the scarf. And for a long time I had a Doctor Who scarf. So, there's just like visuals from it that are in my mind.
Okay.
So about 30 years ago, I may have seen a few minutes of a Doctor Who episode. That's how they pronounce it in Florida. You can trust me on that.
I don't trust you on that.
That said, I think it's safe to say if we were going to like round up or down, I'm not sure which direction to go. I have not ever seen an episode of Doctor Who. It's true.
Okay, there's a reference. Did you catch the reference to?
I enjoyed the reference because it's like the only thing I understood about the whole episode.
So I want to know from both of you what you thought about the episode. But first, from Christa, having never seen it,
Jesus,
did you know what was going on?
No.
At all?
No. I think there is a lot of backstory I was missing out on.
Okay.
And, this is maybe not a series where you can it's not like Law and Order. What are they called? Where you can just watch one episode and it doesn't matter if you know nothing.
I think they just call them standalone.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, that's...
Doctor Who does have a few standalone episodes. I think there is I don't know if you've seen it, there's an AV Club, how to get into Doctor Who, and they talk about the top 10.
Oh, that would be really useful.
10 standalone.
That would be useful because I feel like, as someone who knows very little about the show, that just sitting down and watching the 801st episode is maybe not the best way to get acquainted.
Yeah. Although,
so if there's sort of like a sampling, there's
Fiona,
some reading I could do.
Yeah, although I have to say, as a diehard Doctor Who fan myself, I have a hard time in explaining to people why I like the show, because it sounds, when you kind of like sit down and explain what the show is, it sounds kind of crazy or very geeky. it's technically a kids show.
Yeah.
And then, you don't want to start at the first episode in 1963 because that's a little old school.
There's also, it's a show that is part of sort of the cultural backdrop, of it.
What would be your recommended standalone episode? As a Doctor
Like, if we
Who...
had this conversation before, like 2 hours ago, and if I was like, I know nothing about Doctor Who, what should I do?
Yeah, definitely. So, when I try to get friends interested in it, my recommended episode is actually Blink from the David Tennant era.
That would be mine too.
Yeah, because it's definitely a standalone episode. It's totally creepy. It's interesting, and people usually really love it. And there's no parts like it's not too weird, and so it's a good way to sort of get into Doctor Who without having to do too much explaining, because it's just sort of a nice standalone episode. And there are a few others, but that's sort of the nice.
Well, it's also a new villain.
Yes, yeah, that's the first episode with this Weeping Angel.
When I watched this episode, Deep Breath, there was part of me that was thinking, is this an old villain? The Clockwork.
Well, so that's a good question. So I don't think we really do know. Now, I have watched the episode a few times, and
/5.
and maybe 4 and a half.
And we were nodding off there, so that's.
I was a little bit because it was a dark room, and I've learned to fall asleep in
the dark room.
You were explaining.
Or the dark.
But I watched the episode a few times, and I've gotten into in these episodes, the ones I find interesting, I like to actually go on the interwebs, I guess we called it, and do some reading around different theories about what's going on. So there's a few websites I like to look at and just think about the ideas.
Which websites?
Sure, we can do some shout outs.
Yeah, we will put. We usually put links with our podcasts.
So I'll just mention quickly the two. I think it was a season or two ago. I discovered the website flickphilosopher.com. I think it is. And it's a blogger that she's a professional writer who writes about various TV shows and movies that she likes, but Doctor Who is sort of one of her favorites. So it's Flick Philosopher, like F-L-I-C-K.
Like the pastry.
Like F and F, no PH. And then the other one is denofgeek.com that I actually looked up. I don't often look up that one, but I just was looking at different theories, and I liked the way they were sort of talking about things. I've also watched the show long enough that I can sort of form my own ideas. Anyway, it's hard to say at this point, I think, if it's a new villain or not. But there's certain references, like you were saying, to the episode called The Girl in the Fireplace. And that was from the David Tennant era. And that's actually talked about a lot when you look at people's theories of this episode. Because they had the sort of clockwork robots, and they were looking for parts to... I haven't watched the episode recently, but I think they were looking for parts to replace themselves or something like that, and so that was... and they had that
And the doctor keeps saying he's seen them before.
I think that is the same... This may even be an actor I've seen in this show before, although Doctor Who pulls from so many great...
It does.
Actors. So many people want to do this. It's just one of those shows that...
It's timeless.
Like, it's the longest running science fiction show.
The longest running science fiction show ever. So there's that episode, and nobody's talked about this, but I don't know why nobody has talked about the similarities to the episode, again, with the episode with Matt Smith, which was called The Doctor's Wife, I think.
The Doctor's Wife is the Neil Gaiman written episode, I believe, right?
You would have me stumped on that one. I'd have to look it up, to be honest.
I believe The Doctor's Wife is
I'll
Neil
trust
Gaiman.
You on that.
That's exciting.
I really like that episode, too.
He was somebody who he wanted to write.
Really? I'm sure he did.
To write...
I feel like a lot of the translations of his written work have not been pulled off well. I don't know why that is, or if he's just there's do you think? I mean, well, we could go off on Neil Gaiman, but maybe as writers, once they're specifically writing for television, like maybe the episode that Neil Gaiman maybe wrote.
Oh, it was one of the best episodes.
So like writing for that format, they do it well, but the translation of their written work is not.
I think that's probably very accurate.
That's all I can add. Doctor Who, what's up?
So do we have anything else to add about the before we even talk about the actual episode itself?
Yes. Well, we were basically got on that tangent because we were talking about, have we seen these villains before? Long story short, there are references to a couple of episodes, so there's sort of similarities, but I don't think we really know, and we're going to sort of see if that plot develops. It's hard to say if this is sort of like a hint of things to come, or if it's just, this is one villain and we're not going to see him again, but I feel like we are going to see this guy again. That's my prediction.
Well,
In
the heaven reference at the end of the episode threw me a whole ton.
Yes.
Is that woman a familiar character?
I have no idea.
And then speaking of Neil Gaiman, she reminded me of Amanda Palmer. She happens to be married to Neil Gaiman. But I just thought they looked alike.
Amanda Palmer is
Palmer.
Musician
and writer. Her book is being published as
Oh,
well.
I didn't know that. What's her book called?
The Art of Asking. Y'all should watch that TED Talk.
What were we going on about?
So the last part. I mean, so I don't know who Missy is.
Okay, that was the question.
I think I was vaguely reading online. I think some people have an idea. Maybe she's been referenced in the past. I really don't remember her from anything. So we'll find out. You know, is she?
How long have you been watching Doctor Who?
Oh, since I can remember, my parents watched the
really?
Fourth Doctor when I was growing up. We watched it on, I think, one of the TV Ontario or.
Fiona and I once got together to watch an old black and white Doctor Who.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then one that I actually had a dream where I remembered I had nightmares for months from a Doctor Who episode.
Oh my!
From an episode called Planet of the Spiders.
Oh yeah, with Doctor Number 3.
Patrick, is it Patrick
Swayze?
McGann?
Patrick
Why am I? No, Paul McGann
No.
is. Why am I screwing up their names
Stuart?
right now?
Dempsey?
It was Patrick Dempsey as the third Doctor.
That would be hot.
He was called McTardis.
John Pertwee.
I'm more interested.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite Doctors. So I don't know why I just.
So Planet of the Spiders was John Pertwee.
Yeah. Now I had a
Pewtree?
P-E-W.
Bert
Oh,
Pertwee.
like
Sorry,
pew-pew.
Sorry,
There were
John
some good
Pertwee.
pew-pews in this episode.
P-E-R-T-W-E.
Pertwee.
Pertwee. Sorry.
Pertwee.
John Pertwee, and
Yeah.
he was
Sorry-
one
sorry,
of my.
John.
Tom Baker tends to be people of my generation's favorite Doctor. He's the one with the scarf, the only one you know.
The only one I know.
Because he got played a lot, and that largely had to do with most of his episodes surviving. We can talk a bit about that.
What do you mean?
The older Doctors, what happened at the BBC in the 60s was they basically threw out all of their archives. All of the old Doctor Who, basically from the 60s and before, just was destroyed.
I think it's close,
They didn't think anyone would care about it. It was this kid show.
What? How? No archivist would think no one cares.
The Doctor Who's from the 60s tended to be 4 episode stories, or 8 or 12.
They were like half-hour increments.
And they were little cliffhangers.
Just little ones.
And so every once in a while you'll see this news story where some Australian TV station opened up its archives and found from these lost episodes of Doctor Who and some of the audio. And the rest of the audio came from fans in Britain who would just do reel-to-reel recordings of their televisions. They would hold a microphone up to their TV sets and record it.
Right.
And they would end up putting that together with the film recordings, or in the case of this John Pertwee one, animated the 2 missing episodes.
Wow.
So Fiona and I have watched that together. We have also watched The Planet of the Spiders, which gave me nightmares because I would think that spiders were dropping from the ceiling onto my face every night.
And our
for
family,
weeks.
our family was so into Doctor Who that there were like phrases
let's
from
go
that.
back to your childhood. Are you an only child?
Certainly not.
You have siblings.
Our family had an inside joke where we would
question.
actually make references to that episode, like certain things that they would say, which I won't repeat here, but we'd sort of my mom would say a phrase and we'd all be like, ha ha ha, and it's an inside joke.
So this really was as a family, you guys watched it, you grew up watching it.
Definitely.
And you just continued to watch it.
I am probably the most fanatic of all of us.
Okay. So how do you define fanatic?
Well, there are the 64 gigabytes of Tom Baker episodes.
64 plus.
64 plus. Today I went out and bought a skirt.
It's a really
TARDIS
cute skirt.
print on it.
It's got like a nice flare in that skirt. I think if you're doing any spins, it's.
I know I've sent Fiona things in the mail that are Doctor Who
Yeah,
related.
he sent me some Tom Baker socks. Really brightened
nice.
my day or my month, I think, at the time.
No doubt.
I wore TARDIS cufflinks at my wedding.
Oh, awesome.
It was I don't know if the grooms are supposed to wear something blue, but just so I could specifically wear these TARDIS cufflinks.
A shirt
but
to
it was
match the cufflinks.
it was
That's how
also
works.
partly because my dad was such a huge Doctor Who fan.
Oh, really?
And my dad, because of being not alive, couldn't be at my wedding. So I wanted to have just something that would remind me of him. Otherwise, I would have to have like a USS Enterprise on my...
Was he also a Star Trek fan?
He was a huge Star Trek fan.
My father was not a Star Trek fan, but I know that I saw those Doctor Who episodes because of my dad, who also did not make it to my wedding because of the dead. But, so we have that in common.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
So, we should talk about the episode itself, because we've been talking about this for less than half an hour, but a long enough time. So, the episode opens with a dinosaur wandering around...
dinosaurs? Wandering around the Thames.
Wandering around the Thames.
I was happy seeing London.
The 1850s, I think? Or the 17-something? I don't even remember. The 18-something.
19th century, I think, sometime. Yeah, I thought the dinosaur was a bit over the top. Like, in terms of starting it out, it's kind of, like...
Was it necessary?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, but, yeah, sure, okay, there's a dinosaur. Later on, as sort of like the episode goes on, I mean, you'd think that people would be more concerned about the fact there's a dinosaur... And like they seem to just accept that the fact that there are these like I'm giving things away now, but
no, give
like,
it away. It is anybody watching this episode. There are spoilers for the rest of the episode, and you should go back and watch the first episode of season 8 of Doctor Who before you listen to this, because we're gonna wreck it.
What was the first archaeological dig that discovered dinosaur bones?
What was the first archaeological dig?
Like time wise, if we're dealing with a dinosaur in the Thames and everyone's like NBD. Is that because everyone knew about dinosaurs? They'd all been to the Tyrrell Museum in Southern Alberta?
I think everyone knew about dinosaurs in the 1850s or whenever this episode took place in.
Okay.
Anyway, this was in Victorian London.
It was Victorian London. One of the things about the show, and especially London, and it's kind of this running joke, and I think it's gone through the entire series since it began, is... that Londoners have short memories.
Remember last Christmas, there was... Because if you notice, like Doctor Who's... Like, it went off the air for a little while, and it's been back on the air since 2005, and every Christmas, I think, pretty much, there's been something really horrible. Yeah. So you'd think that people would start to be like, hey guys, it's Christmas.
And it's always...
Brace yourself.
You do not want to you do not want to be in London or Cardiff around
Christmas time. Because just, like... Titanic's crashed into Buckingham Palace, or...
I lived in London for a year. I don't remember anything like that. Although I think I went home for Christmas.
Yeah. And so, I mean, in all fairness, a lot of this is historical in terms of the show, right? So remember, this show started in 1963. It's true,
because historically, there were dinosaurs, or at least one, in the Thames in Victorian London.
Okay, I have no idea.
It lived there for... I think 4 months there was a dinosaur in the Thames in Victorian London.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll provide a link.
We'll put the link. There's a link.
There's always a link.
I will find one somewhere. But no, historically, I mean, the show had a limited budget, and of course, special effects were not what they are today in the 1960s and 70s, and so just by virtue of that, a lot of the scenes were in the UK and especially in London.
Yeah.
And that does continue a little bit to today, but I mean, if you really think about it, if you think realistically, people would kind of realize that a lot of weird things happen in London in the context of the show. By the way, this is just a shout out to Stephen Moffat. If you're thinking about new ideas for episodes, Canada is a great place to set an episode, especially Newfoundland is very particular, and there's someone I know in St. John's who would be more than happy to help you with that. Maybe you should edit this out.
No, I'm going to leave it. Because
we don't edit anything.
We never edit. We don't edit a word. Every pause, every
We believe very much in the organic, spontaneous experience.
All right, so let's back it up. So like, if I had to, so now that you've seen an episode, and you might have seen some episode in your subconscious from your childhood, or something. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? Like, who is this guy, and what's this show about?
I know so little about the show. My sense is that there's time travel. I knew about the whole, like, oh, look, it's a police box, but there's a whole thing inside. I'd been to, like, the Google link where you can, like, Google Maps where you can, like, go in the TARDIS.
So that's what Christa has gotten from this. And then we were starting to talk about the episode.
Yeah, we got to the it opens with a dinosaur.
We got 3 seconds.
We got no further.
I thought that was the doctor.
I did take notes, and at the beginning, about like less than 1 minute in, Christa was like, "Is that the doctor?"
So the doctor lays, the dinosaur lays an egg.
What? Oh,
The inspector says that when the dinosaur coughs out our blue box, the TARDIS, the blue police box, as with every doctor, it's always a new police box, a new TARDIS interior, and a new doctor. Yeah.
Okay, so how often do they change the doctor?
It depends. So this would be the 13th Doctor.
13.
Yeah. If you count the War Doctor.
In 800 episodes. How many episodes per average?
So it really depends. I mean, and I would
There's
have to
a chart.
Oh, yeah, there's a chart.
I'd like to see that chart. Okay, so he's the 13th Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they changed because of audience reaction, because of, like, contracts, because
always
someone's going to be the next Bond now.
I think with the exception of 1 or 2 actors, it has always been because the actor wanted to stop doing it.
And who's this guy? So this actor...
except Paul McGann.
Paul McGann. Yeah.
Who do I know? Where do I know this actor from?
Peter Capaldi?
Yeah. I thought he was charming. I'm always a fan of the salt and pepper, and I'm definitely a fan of the accent. And I was sure that I'd seen him somewhere before, but I couldn't place it. Oh, look, he was in Doctor Who in 2008.
He was. And we're going
to
to talk about that.
Yeah.
Do they always explain... Okay, how do they explain the change in the actor? Because part of the plot in this episode was, what's her tits? She's all like, who is this guy? Because she had a thing, Clara had a thing with the old Doctor, and now she's like, how do I still... There was, for me, I just kept thinking of other... So I thought of the Star Trek episode where they have the hosts, and Beverly Crusher, like, falls in love with the guy, and then his weird... alien thing gets moved to the female host, and she's like, we're not that advanced, and I thought about that. But so this is like it's the same person but a different body. So do they explain that transition the same way every time?
It's easier to understand if you've seen the show historically. It's done differently every time.
Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, with Peter Capaldi, I always have bad, actually. Like, I always have a lot of reservations about when they change a doctor, because you get used to one and you're sort of comfortable with it.
They change it a lot.
I don't like to change doctors.
Yeah, well...
nobody likes to change doctors.
No,
before we go further, Peter Capaldi is most well known for the character Malcolm Tucker from In the Loop, and
I haven't seen that.
And he is so incredibly foul-mouthed. There are clips of him just saying fuck. And
that's great.
If we can have it, I'm going to put it right here, and then it'll end, and it'll come back.
Have you seen the version of Big Lebowski, which is only the F word? Like, every time they say fuck or fuck. And you actually get the plot of the film just by watching every time they say fuck.
Oh, I believe that.
It's really good. But I would like to see... I'm looking forward to that.
We could pause this and watch it now.
Yeah!
Yeah, okay.
Applause.
We'll pause it and then we'll come back. Applause for Peter Capaldi.
Yeah, maybe it's better to spike it. Yeah. Okay, fuckity bye. Do you know what you sounded like? You sounded like a fucking Nazi Julie Andrews. I'm busy. Fuck off. Rob, Innes, Little Bo Cock Jockey, and the leaky fucking minge box. Go back to your desks and prepare to start briefing now. Oh, fuck off. Resigning? How fucking impressive. Resign. The horse is bolted. It's out there now. It's getting fucking shot. Fetus boy, lesson 1. I tell you to fuck off. What do?
F off?
You'll go far. Well, fuck off. I've come across a lot of psychos, but none as fucking boring as you. I mean, you are a real boring fuck. Sorry, I know that you disapprove of swearing, right. So I'll sort that out. You are a boring F*** cunt.
I love it.
So we're at the part in the episode where the dinosaur lays the egg. Just the first 30 seconds.
Wait, okay. Brace yourself.
It's going so well.
Okay, wait. I didn't get to finish. You asked me what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. I think everybody has mixed feelings about when a new doctor comes in, and I wasn't very excited about the way he was introduced in the last episode, where you just see his eyebrows, like...
so you did see him at the end of the last season?
You see sort of just a glimpse, and then you see him regenerate. And so I was kind of like, meh, but I felt...
what does regenerate mean?
Oh, we'll get to that. Okay, pause. But I felt like that for every previous doctor. I always feel reserved at the beginning. I actually really liked Peter Capaldi in this. I love the accent. Love the Scottish accent.
Yeah.
Love it. And he even starts to sound a little bit like Tom Baker to me. Like when I listen to the voice, he sounds sort of like, I hear little hints of Tom Baker in there. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I don't even know. No, I don't think so. So I'm actually now excited for Peter Capaldi. I think he did great in this first episode. And now we'll answer the question, maybe, what is regeneration? What is regeneration? 5?
Regeneration is, it was something that was introduced, I think, right from the very beginning. So what happened when the initial actor, I believe, had to quit? They sort of had him die and then come back as a different person. And I think he was only supposed to have 12 regenerations.
Yes, which is interesting because now he's on 13. His last... Yeah, he's on his last one.
And he's 2,000 years old, which the 60s to now is less than 2,000.
Because he travels through time and it's not always with... The person he's with in this episode is Clara, and Clara is his companion. So he always has a companion that he travels with, who
always female?
I can't remember the... It's not always female.
And he always has a companion?
But he does have this line in this episode.
Does he always have a crush on them?
He was sorry that he brought the dinosaur along, because he was trapped. The TARDIS was trapped in his throat when he time traveled, and he says, "I brought you along by accident. It's mostly how I meet girls."
Yes, that was it.
So
which is accurate.
It's very accurate. Yeah, that's how he meets most of his companions.
He sort of just runs into somebody, and then he's like, and then they have an adventure, and then he's like, "Hey, I traveled through time and space. You want to join me?"
I see. But so how many companions have there been?
There probably been more companions than doctors, I would think.
Definitely. It's dozens and dozens. There's been dozens, like lots.
Okay.
I don't actually know the exact number, but
so let's try and get through the actual synopsis of the episode, and we'll bring up a couple of things.
What else happened?
The dinosaur spits out the TARDIS, and then our 3 other characters, Jenny, Madame Vastra, and Strax. I never remember the names because I'm not terribly fond of them as characters.
Fair enough.
Now that is the lizard woman and her wife Jenny, and the Sontaran Strax. He's an alien.
Oh, that's his deal? And he's like the butler?
So there's a lot of context in that because the Sontarans were actually they were like previously, in previous episode of Doctor Who, they were one of the enemies of Doctor Who, and then Madame Vastra is a Silurian, I think, and they were also enemies of Doctor Who, so now these 3 became sort of like a team, and now they seem to sort of help out the Doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, they're there, and, but I don't see them as an independent series, but I mean, whatever.
So anyway, the dinosaurs spit out the TARDIS.
First 30 seconds.
First 30 seconds of the show.
10 seconds in.
They Strax knocks on the door and says, "Come out and surrender." And Peter Capaldi, our new doctor, appears. After shutting the door on Strax, he comes out and starts calling him Grumpy Sleazy, or Grumpy Sneezy.
There is no sleazy in the Seven Dwarfs.
There is no sleazy.
What version were you watching?
I was in a children's theater
with a sleazy
version with Snow White and the 17 dwarves.
17?
And Sleazy was one of the dwarves.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah.
What are you talking? Where? What? When?
This was a children's theater production, and it's not worth talking about, but there was a sleazy.
I will ask you another time.
Anyway, he calls him something to do with 7 dwarves, and he's very confused, and he
name's not my area. How's my Scottish accent?
Terrible.
Excellent. Very good.
Let Fiona talk.
Name's not my area.
No more.
He's confused, very confused, and he passes out. I thought this scene actually, like, of him sort of being very disoriented when he first changed, this is sort of his first few moments after he's regenerated. This reminded me a lot of the regeneration from Doctor Number 3 to 4, so from John Pertwee to Tom Baker.
Mm.
So like just the confusion, the sort of disorientation, and I think he does pass out in that part. Well, a lot of them pass out, but then that, like, once he's passed out, and then Madame Vastra looking and saying, "Here we go again." I remember, and fans correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Brigadier says that, he's like, "Oh, well, here we go again," and then cue the credits, and so like when they go from Doctor 3 to 4.
Yeah.
So that's sort of like a reference to a previous Doctor.
Lovely.
And then we have the intro. This intro was actually a fan submitted
animation, and they used it.
Stephen Moffat saw it. I think he bought the concept off of the
Nice.
artist, gave it to the BBC artist, and then they redid it.
And
And it's quite a different intro.
Well, it's so visually, it's had some subtle changes, and like musically, it's had some fairly subtle changes. And this is a pretty like a more significant departure from both of them. I think visually, I really like it. It's very steampunk. But the audio reminded me a lot of kind of like the 80s intros, and like it sounds a lot like the Sylvester McCoy Dr. Number 7 intro to me. So I still have mixed feelings on the audio, but I really like the visuals.
And then...
Oh, and then we get to the rest of the episode.
Yeah. So I think then the next scene, I think they were in they're trying to convince him to go to bed, and they're saying he needs to sleep. And he's complaining that there's only a bed in the room, and why would you want, quote unquote, a whole room for not being awake in? Which I love this language. You know, and like I just there's so many quotes in this episode. It's so rich with these quotes that I just love. Like, don't look in the mirror, it's absolutely furious.
Furious, not vicious.
Furious.
I said vicious, and I meant furious. The furious
You gotta
mirror.
try, whenever you're throwing the quotes out, you gotta do your best Scottish accent.
That's
it's
the
important.
brain tumor.
I would like...
Don't look in the mirror, it's absolutely furious. Is that better?
Furious.
No, everyone is terrible.
Oh, I know we're terrible.
I'm sorry.
And we apologize
to all our
all of
viewers.
Scotland.
Which is a nice change. Normally we're apologizing to all of Sweden.
We
But
are.
in this episode we're apologizing to all of
He's
Scotland.
also complaining because they're all talking to him, and he says, "You all sound English. You've all developed a fault." And so Madame Vastra cleverly sort of pretends to sound Scottish, and she sort of tricks the doctor into thinking that he's doing a psychic link with her, and then she puts him to sleep.
She does. What did you think of the relationship between Madame Vastra? I forget her name all the time.
Madame Vastra.
Madame Vastra and Jenny. I think I wrote down Dom-sub relationship.
A little bit.
Yes.
What with the
totally.
tea?
Later on in the episode. We're going to jump around.
Yeah, she's posing.
She poses. She has absolutely lovely cleavage, by the way.
She's
gorgeous.
She's totally beautiful.
Yeah.
It is pretty dom sub.
It is very Dom-sub.
Yep.
But Jenny seems very happy to be like, it's okay. I'll pour the tea and I'll pose for the painting that's not actually ever happening.
It's just so that I'm looking pretty while you work.
And I absolutely love the part where Clara comes in.
And she says, take off your clothes.
She says, just drop your clothes over there.
Pop your clothes on the chair.
It's not communicated terribly well at all about the... There are a couple of... Madame Vastra has a crush on... Oh no, Jenny has a crush on the dinosaur in the Thames. And Madame Vastra thinks feisty Clara is someone that she really likes.
She sure does.
But I don't think that's incredibly subtle.
It's not
brief.
that subtle.
It's brief though.
It's very and it's only not made subtle by Jenny, because otherwise I think it would just be seen as like, I like you feisty.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're jumping around a ton, which is the way we love to do it.
So Madame Vastra puts him to sleep.
The way we love to do it.
Yeah.
And after that, he's asleep, but he's basically translating for the dinosaur, is what I understand. And he's talking about being alone. And Clara is saying, commenting on, where did he get that face? There are lines on it, but it's brand new.
What's the name of the last doctor? What was that actor?
Matt Smith.
Oh, Matt Smith. I'd take Peter over Matt any day.
So it's interesting because the doctor over time, he's actually gotten younger over the years, physically, like in physical appearance, but he's gotten older, of course. So the first doctor, way back in 1963, actually was more of and he was actually a grandfather. He had his granddaughter was one of his first companions.
That's right.
And he was grandfather. And then he actually got younger and younger as every generation went on, more or less, like as a trend, I think. And then the most recent doctors, so the show went from 1963 to 1989, and then BBC cancelled it for about, about 16 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And then...
what happened was they tried to make an American version of Doctor Who.
What?
With the actor Paul McGann, and they wanted to start it with a TV movie, which actually in retrospect is very good. Mm-hmm. It has its flaws, but it's very good. But it got rejected just outright because of it being an Americanized version. But they've built him kind of retroactively into the canon. And anyway, doesn't matter. Not important to somebody who hasn't seen the show.
So there's Paul McGann, and that's like so 1989 Sylvester McCoy, and then jump to 1996 I think it was, and there's one episode, and then there's nothing for 9 more years, and then Christopher Eccleston is this younger guy, and then David Tennant and Matt Smith are fairly young. Matt Smith was the youngest actor to ever play the Doctor. I think he was 27 when he started.
26, I think.
26. Okay, sure. And then all of a sudden, like so what Clara has seen in her eyes is she's seen a young Matt Smith as the Doctor. And then she jumps to Peter Capaldi, and so in her eyes she's like, who's this person? Like she's expecting this young Doctor, whereas in reality when Madame Vastra talks about him, she's really saying,
well, they do say something interesting. They said he was young for you, but that would have been for Amy Pond, not for
that was kind
Clara.
of interesting.
Amy Pond was an older companion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then,
how are you feeling lost in this world between us?
Join us.
Just listening.
So he's asleep, and Clara's musing on that he's old and she can't deal with this. And then Strax comes in and makes a couple of jokes about how he says, "Let me take your clothes." I mean, I don't know. I find these jokes are getting a little bit old by now. Strax not being able to tell the difference between boy and girl, and
like the Strax character.
Yeah,
I think he's.
And I mean, my problem is that Strax is wearing clothes. Can he not tell the difference between clothes and not clothes? And then later on, he does a medical exam, and he's examining her eye, but he's saying, "Oh, like, easy mistake. It could have been your mouth." But
he's
humanoid, and he has eyes, and so
interesting.
It's cute. I think it's a comic gag for the kids, right? It's a joke for the kids.
It feels to me like a Jar Jar Binks George Lucas moment in Doctor Who, where it is like you are introducing a character for the kids.
But it's not necessarily...
when you don't need to do that. It's like you've already done... He does some very funny lines where he says that he wants to bring the Doctor back so he can melt him with acid.
Is that...
And then he says, not melt him with acid. The Sontaran people are warriors who try and take over everything.
Okay.
And so he is a reformed...
That's good to know. But he throws newspapers
and
at
I don't
people's
mind
heads.
him calling everybody boy. I don't think that's
cute.
fine.
That's fine.
It's sort of cute. It just means that like the Sontarans don't have gender.
It's like that's terribly modern.
Right. Well, so Strax takes her downstairs to meet Madame Vastra, and Madame Vastra is now wearing her veil because she feels like Jenny is judging her, or she says that she wears a veil as a judgment on. Sorry,
not Jenny.
Not Jenny. Clara. Sorry. So she says that she's wearing a veil because she feels like Clara is judging her, and she comments that she's wearing a veil as a judgment on Clara.
Now, for me, as somebody who's familiar with the show, I didn't need the scene. Did you need the scene, Krista? Not familiar with the show.
The scene of her saying, "You don't have to judge me," and then Claire gets all feisty.
Yeah.
It's hard to say if I needed the scene because I...
Well, did it add anything for you? Like, I don't know how much you followed in this episode. This episode, to me, felt like a lot of in-jokes.
Oh, yeah. There was definitely... I was like, that seems like a reference that I'm not getting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't say if it didn't need the scene. I mean,
Did you enjoy it?
It was sort of obvious. You know, and she has that line, it's like, "Oh, when did you take your veil off?" As soon as you stopped noticing.
I felt like all of that explaining with the veil and everything, I mean, like, it made for some interesting quotes, like the judgment on, "I wear the veil as a judgment on people." I mean, I was like, oh, yeah, interesting. But I felt like all that could have been, would not have been necessary if they had actually just included, like, a 30-second clip at the beginning of the whole episode showing the regeneration. Showing Matt Smith regenerating into Peter Capaldi, and then the thing that you do in most episodes or many episodes of TV shows, like last time or last season on Doctor Who, whatever, previously, and
previously on
previous episode, and
Captain's
just
log.
summarizing kind of previously we saw, like, I don't know, something like that, because this was all kind of for seasoned Doctor Who watchers. This was not necessary.
Yeah,
they were thinking of me.
Did
they
it
tried?
Help you? Yeah. See, I didn't feel it either. I think I would have... Madam what's her name? And
Madame Vastra.
See, I'm never going to remember her name because I do not care about her as a character. And Sontaran guy. Get rid of them. I love Jenny. I think Jenny is great. I think she's really funny. And I do really like that she has a crush on a lizard. Or is married to a lizard.
/ lifelong commitment.
Anyway, I'm jumping ahead. There is the scene where Peter Capaldi escapes. He wakes up.
He
draws a whole
he's
bunch
sniffing. I don't know what all those.
He
like,
gets
so
all
finds
beautiful
some-
minds.
He's sniffing for
chalk, and then all of a sudden he's writing all these equations. So I don't know what those equations were about. That doesn't make any
Nobody
sense
knows.
to me. It's very beautiful mind. It
Beautiful
is.
mind, am I right?
And then
This is a problem with any TV show and movie. Whenever somebody is crazy, they suddenly get into murals.
there you go.
They all of a sudden start doing collages and murals, and they're good at it. They've got composition, and they have materials and art supplies.
I liked it. Like,
I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
So true. That is so true.
I think it was a good scene, and then he gets up, or he hears the dinosaur sort of roar, and he gets up, he looks up, and then he goes to the door and he says, I think, what did he say? He said, "Door, boring, not me." Close it, slams the door, goes to the window, opens the window, and yells out, "Me!" and then jumps out the window.
I love that. I love the
great.
idea that he decides not to use the door just because he doesn't use the doors.
All right, so he jumps out of the window, and then he.
I don't have any more pens, Krista.
All right. Dear listeners, I'm speaking on my own now.
Sorry. Please say that again because Krista is either drunk or distracted.
Well, or you can say this. I mean, I'm just going blow by blow.
No, please. Can you go back to the part before Krista, who has a mural on her leg?
Not only do we apologize to all of Sweden and Scotland, we also apologize to each other. I am sorry that you have to deal with us.
It's okay. All right. Back. So I loved how
I'm
Doctor Who or Peter Capaldi was writing on the floor, very beautiful mindish, and then he hears the dinosaur roar or make a sound, whatever, and he goes to the door, wrenches open the door, and says, "Door, boring, not me." Slams the door shut, runs to the window, jumps out the window into a tree, and lands sort of upside down, face to face with a man with a horse, like a horse and buggy.
Yeah.
And says, "I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to relieve you of your pet." And I think the guy says something like, "What?" And then he says, "No, I wasn't talking to you."
It's on the horse.
Yes, on the horse. And goes by horseback to try and save the dinosaur. Gets to the dinosaur and he yells. When he sees her, he yells out, "Big, sexy woman!"
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she's on fire.
The dinosaur. Who set her on fire?
When did we meet? When did we met our cyborg
Briefly.
for the show? Is he named
Like
at all?
represent-
No, the node, I think is what they call it.
The node or the control.
The control node or something.
The dinosaur, I mean, they do say this, seems to, and they describe spontaneous combust. A la, when she talked about the number, what was the number that she said, the number of times there's been spontaneous
4.
combustion? 4.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was more than that. I think it was like 9. It was
4.
more than 4. No.
I'm going to go with 4.
No. And I was like, do you mean all the Spinal Tap drummers? Which I think was maybe more than 4.
I have no idea.
Okay, so the
It
dinosaur...
could be a Spinal Tap reference. That would be funny.
I don't think
But
it was, but it made me
It
think
wouldn't
of it.
be out of place.
Not Spinal Tap. The dinosaur seemingly spontaneously combusts in the Thames, like bursts into flames. A dinosaur the size of the fucking Chrysler building bursts into flames. It wasn't like from the
Or
angle.
the gherkin. We're talking about London, so a dinosaur the size of the gherkin.
Okay.
Sure.
And so who set the dinosaur on fire?
Well, so we don't know. We're
It was
like,
the cyborg.
Or
Or
the
the
dogs
dogs out.
And meanwhile,
we don't know at this point, but it was the cyborg who set him on fire just to get the
optic nerve
of the dinosaur
Yeah.
for its computer parts.
So and then Jenny, Strax, and Madame Vastra are rushing along in their carriage because they realize the doctor's missing.
Yeah.
And I love how Strax is like rushing by someone in the alley. He's like, "Jurassic emergency."
That is pretty great.
Which I caught. I don't think anyone else caught. But the next scene is where that I can recall is the doctor's standing on the edge of the bridge, looking down on the dinosaur on fire, saying sorry, 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 sorry. And then they ask, "What is the question?" The question is, how many of these have happened recently?
He says, "What is a question?" a lot, or he says, "That's not the question."
That's not the question. Yeah,
which it seems like a new. The Doctor tends to have a different catchphrase, and whenever he regenerates,
he gets a new one.
Well, whenever he regenerates, they explain that his personality changes. So he tends to have new catchphrases, and he tends to have a
sign of personality change.
Yeah. But he will. It also is supposed to explain that the new actor can bring his own character to the role. He doesn't have to try and ape,
and they can make it like
monkey. He doesn't have to try and monkey the previous actor, because as we know, all people are apes, and except for men are monkeys.
Yes, we learned that.
Yeah, I don't know how I felt about that, but
so I think
there's a few.
So
that's not the question. Seems to be the thing that this Doctor will do.
Yeah. And so around then the part what they notice is that Madame Vastra points out that there's someone walking across the way who seems unusually undisturbed by the available spectacle or something, and they're just sort of wondering, is that the guy? Is that the person who should be going after? And then next to the alley. Now I read online today, and I don't know if this is actually true, but apparently one of the articles that I was reading says that the tramp in the alley is actually a reference to Elizabeth Sladen, who played
Sarah Jane.
Sarah Jane, thank you. Sorry. So the tramp in the alley is actually a reference to Sarah Jane because apparently that's her widower.
I would not be surprised.
So anyway, apparently the gentleman who plays the
Sarah
tramp,
Jane was probably the most beloved companion of the Doctor from the 60s.
Okay. Wait, we're talking about
apparently the tramp,
the actor and the actor
is the widower. The person who plays the tramp is the widower of Elizabeth Sladen. Who was what I read in one of the articles about this episode.
Elizabeth Sladen is no longer with us.
No, she passed away a few years ago. Yeah. And so he's in the he's in the alley and he's looking through. He's looking at this. He's sort of looking through the trash. And he's looking at this mirror.
He doesn't seem to know what he's looking for, and I don't think that's ever answered. He's just rummaging through garbage.
He's just rummaging, and then he comes upon this tramp. I guess we're calling him in the alley.
There's many times in this episode where he encounters his reflection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like even when he holds up the platter. Yeah. And so the fact that there's a mirror in the trash is sort of reiterating that he's encountering his reflection and he's encountering the transition.
Now the reason that they did this is because Peter Capaldi has played at least 2 characters in the Doctor Who world previous to this. He played a character in Torchwood, and he played a Roman emperor.
In the Fires of Pompeii, he played one of the... I don't know what you call him.
Because, like you were saying, writers and actors, everyone wants to be on Doctor Who.
Yeah, and everyone wants to work with Peter Capaldi because he's great.
And in that episode, The Fires of Pompeii, Peter Capaldi played the father in this Roman family who were saved by the Doctor, reluctantly so. I forget who his companion was at the time, but they pushed and convinced the Doctor, who was David Tennant, I think, at the time, to save this family, even though David Tennant was like, no, I don't want to change the timeline. And so I don't know if that's going to come up later in terms of relevance. Maybe this face is like he keeps on commenting about this face and things like that.
Stephen Moffat has claimed that he has a plan, but has not revealed it. But I loved the scene where he talks about his face and how it's not familiar, and he likes it okay up until the eyebrows.
And can I just say before that, he also says another phrase that I really like, and this has been in my head for a few days now. When he's commenting about his face, he says, "It's covered in lines, but I did not do the frowning. Who frowned me this face?"
Oh, who frowned me this face?
I love that phrase.
I wrote that down as well somewhere.
My face is fresh on, though. Why this one? Why did I choose this face? It's like I'm trying to tell myself something. It's like I'm trying to make a point. Yeah. Okay, and then he makes that very entertaining comment about the eyebrows.
Yeah. And he does also make the Tom Baker scarf reference in this scene, where he says, "I need a really long scarf," and he says, "I'm a bit old for that. It looks stupid."
So then he realizes he's Scottish.
Which means he can complain about things.
I'm Scottish.
Everyone's going to hate my terrible Scottish.
No.
I can... Really? Sincerely? Which means I have to do it more.
Yes.
Yeah.
I sincerely hate it. Do it more.
He is mean to the tramp.
He is mean.
A little bit.
He steals his coat.
Yeah, and the tramp is kind of like, and he's like, "Stop it! Be quiet! Shut up! Shut up!" And then his phrases in the last part of this scene are again, a throwback to a previous episode. And in this one, for me, this is the Matt Smith episode when Matt Smith first showed up, where there was the prisoner Zero, and he goes, I saw, what did I see? I saw. Do you not remember that?
No. But this is going to get confusing for our new listener, Chris. Our new watcher.
I am a new listener and first-time caller. So when the series was like rebooted in the
2005.
In 2005, that was with Matt Smith?
No.
That was who was that?
So
Christopher Eccleston.
There's a
For
couple
how many
of
seasons?
One
season, and then Matt Smith, and
then there's David Tennant.
Tennant.
And then David Tennant.
So anyway, he's saying, I saw, what did I see? And then he makes some sort of comment.
What was the question?
Wait, what?
Oh, I know. I was just wondering. I didn't know. Like, my question was about Matt Smith.
Matt Smith.
Thank you. You answered it.
So then he makes a comment about blaming the English. Oh yeah, right. Okay, and they did talk about previous victims. So whoever killed the dinosaur has at least 9 previous victims, is what I wrote from the episode.
Okay. So maybe there were 9 spontaneous combustions. I remember 4, but
and then Madame Vastra is she's trying to convince Jenny to be like that she's painting her.
Yeah.
Clara comes in, and then Madame Vastra says, the game is afoot and we are going to need a lot of tea.
Oh, I wrote that down. That's my favorite line. I'm going to say that all the time.
Because why would you...
F star cunt? Oh, that was something else.
No, that was something else. The game is afoot. We're going to need a lot of tea.
It speaks to your British blood.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Because Clara brings in the Impossible Girl newspaper.
Yes, right. So,
What
I mean,
you're
we won't go
saying
into
is
too much
meaningless.
details, but she's the Impossible Girl. So that's a reference, like that's sort of a nickname for her. And so then they look at the newspaper and they finally figure they take them, like it says, Impossible Girl, meet me for lunch on the other side. And then they realize that means the other side of the newspaper.
Clever.
And then it says,
Mancini's.
Mancini's Restaurant. So then they go to Mancini's, and that's the creepy
Restaurant.
humanoid.
It's full of Hubots.
Hubot restaurant. And Clara's there, and then all of a sudden,
The
Peter
doctor
Capaldi,
appears.
The doctor appears,
But
stinky.
with the smell.
It's the jet. Yeah, it's everywhere.
And he doesn't know where it's coming from.
She says, "Oh, you bought your favorite wristwatch. You paid for that with a coat. Not a very good deal." He said, "Well, I was in a hurry. There was a horrible smell, or something like that."
Yeah.
That whole scene, you said something a little while ago. I mean, the chemistry between them is very good, and their dialogue and their little back and forth is very charming.
I didn't like the chemistry between her and Matt Smith, who played the previous Doctor.
Oh, really?
Even though they were supposed to be flirty, but I just didn't feel like it worked. But I like the chemistry between Peter Capaldi and
Jenna Coleman. Sorry.
Oh, Jenna Coleman, of course.
Cute little back and forth.
Do you have a problem with the gray ones?
What?
Do you have a problem with the gray doctors? Which assumes that she's met more than
the doctors,
one.
yeah.
Which I guess John Hurt was a gray one. And then he plucks her hair, which I still don't understand what that means.
And he plucks actually 2 hairs from her eventually, and comments that nobody else in the restaurant is breathing.
I love the sounds that these TikTok. When I say TikTok, I'm thinking of Return to Oz with Frozen Ball.
Of course.
But OBS. But the sounds that they make.
The little clockwork
is really
sounds.
Charming.
That's something that's been in the show before.
Oh, really? I liked it. It's a nice effect.
In The Girl in the Fireplace.
Yeah. This show has done a lot with steampunk.
Yeah.
Yes,
I love
clearly.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their waiter comes.
Brainstem.
And then the creepiest line in the whole episode.
Menu.
Do you have a children's menu? And the answer being yes.
Yes, we have a children's menu. Oh, and before the waiter shows up, they've tried to get up, but then all of these creepy robotoid people get up and try to stop them, and so they get back, and then the waiter had shown up.
Yeah.
They don't try to stop them.
They
They
get up.
suggest that they would.
They would, yeah. Then these sort of metal arms with little hands
Strap
But how
those
do you
seatbelts.
how do you feel about the scene where the doctor rips the face off the waiter and puts it on Clara? How would you feel if somebody...
And it takes her a few seconds to notice that it's a face.
A real human face.
I mean, I don't care if it's a normal, like a fake face or a real face. I would be ripping that off right away.
That would not be a real face. Tissue cannot be maintained like that.
Okay, well, like, I mean, totally.
Okay, well, let's ask our resident
Lady
expert.
Doctor.
Lady Doctor.
Well, we don't do much facial transplants.
Yeah.
Which you can do these days, by the way.
You can do facial transplants?
You can do face transplants. They have been successfully done.
Wow.
And people who've been maimed for whatever reason. Yeah, exactly.
Various...
what do you mean? Like, how long would it be viable? How long would it be before it starts decaying? Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think within a day or so it would start being a little bit funky.
Well, we don't know how often these robots replace their faces. Because that is part of the premise of the show.
And that's the other question. I mean, if you're going to be totally scientifically technical about this, and I don't want to, like, you know, be a killjoy, but
you should be.
Like, when he rips the face off, you notice there's just these metal bars underneath. So where's the vascularity to keep that tissue alive?
Right? That's what I was asking.
So I think it's not very
I'm
realistic.
assuming they have a polymer.
Sure.
That they coat.
No.
Sure.
They coat
Saved
this
with a
up
polymer.
And you know, like the guy, what's his name, Gerhard, something, who does the exhibitions.
Oh yes, but those are plasticized.
The plastination.
So if it was
they are from the
plasticized-
51st century.
Well, I'm sure that things are much more.
So
advanced
they're
now.
very good at what they do.
we don't know.
So if it's plasticized, sure.
Yeah.
I would still, if I was Clara, I would not have that delayed reaction to, like, hey, you just put something that was on that guy's face onto my face, but only when he says, like, when he says, like, a face, then she's like, rah! Strap in, seatbelt things come on, and then they go down into the larder.
The larder.
The larder.
And he's recharging. The node is recharging in a chair. Do they have... What kind of electricity did they have going on back then?
I feel like that was advanced technology for the Victorian London. It looks like he was really just plugging himself in like an iPod. And then he comments on how his hands don't match. And for me, I was commenting much earlier in the episode about how for me is a strong reference to the episode of Doctor Who called The Doctor's Wife with Matt Smith, where they go to this, I guess,
it's a
planet called House.
Yeah.
Or where there's a being called House and there's Auntie and Uncle, but they sort
Laurie?
of build themselves.
It's Hugh Laurie. Hugh Laurie is turned into a planet. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, so they've scavenged parts from previous visitors. And
TARDISes.
Previous Time Lords. And so well, sure. So they take the energy from the TARDISes, but they also take parts from the Time Lords. And so they sort of have like just mismatching hands and kidneys and things like this, and they're all sort of just patchwork people. So that's that's basically right out of that episode for me.
Right. They talk about that this is not a cyborg. It is a robot trying to turn itself into a man.
Into a human, yeah.
Yeah. And then the doctor leaves the chamber. Mm-hmm. And he makes a reference to that he has a brand new head and it's rebooting. And then he locks Clara into the chamber with...
Yeah, I don't understand why he did that.
Because there was no reason to lock her in there. He could have just left.
It was half open, and he could have just tried to pry the door open. The other problem I have with this is that why... so later on, like at the end, like sort of towards the end of this episode, there's like we realize that Jenny and Madame Vastra and Strax are all waiting in the wings to jump in and sort of help save the day. Yeah. And there's a secret word that she can say to bring them all in. So why don't they just do that then?
Yeah.
And then she realizes, oh crap, I'm
fucked.
I'm in this room.
Fuckity bye to me.
And he's like, basically.
F***.
And F***. And he's waking up, and all of the other little nodettes, I guess, are waking up.
Yeah.
And so she sort of tries to pretend to be a nodette.
She holds her
nodette.
breath.
And she realizes that by holding her breath, they don't really notice her. And so she tries to walk away, but then eventually she gets very short of breath and has to breathe. And the master node says, "Bring her!" and then he has an interrogation with her. While she's being brought to that room, she has a flashback back to when she was working as a teacher and she was trying to control the class, and the class was completely out of control. Or she says something like, if you guys don't behave, then I will give you all of the suspension or something. And one of the students looks at her and says, go ahead then, do it. Challenging her, saying, calling her bluff and saying, I dare you, come on, go ahead and do it. And so she remembers that in her subconscious, and then she wakes up and she's confronted with this
she realizes that our cyborg has given her the biggest threat he can give, which is to destroy her, and that if she just says no to that, everything else is going to be a smaller threat, which basically means she controls the game, which is the whole point of that. And he pulls out this flamethrower arm, but she really gets the answers to why did you kill a dinosaur. He talks about how he's going to the promised land, and she gets to the point where she realizes they've been around, or they've seen the dinosaurs before, so they know that the optic nerve that they burned the dinosaur down for came from them. So she's gotten that information out of them, and then she says, if the doctor is still the doctor, he'll have my back, and she holds her hand behind her back, and that is when the doctor, who somehow is still in the room,
suddenly there, grabs her hand.
Wearing a fake face.
Yeah, how did he got back?
Gross.
He managed to put on another face.
Which is really gross. He's not afraid to get his head up in things.
Is that a bad thing?
So he takes off this face, and then suddenly he's there, and then Clara yells Geronimo and presses a button, and there you go. That was a sound effect on purpose.
Well, he does come in, and I love how he calls them rubbish robots from the dawn of time.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah.
He talks about bad things, and the bad things that he mentions are karaoke and mime.
Yes.
Oh, I missed that. What is
There's
No,
like, don't
I
do
loved
it.
that.
I can't remember what the line is, but it is like, don't do anything. Oh, he's going to blow up their power control. Like, he's going to blow up their source of power. Kill everybody if they do anything wrong. Anything that he hates, like karaoke or mime.
Fair
That's
enough.
absolutely.
Fair enough. So then they press the button. I'm like all about this button now.
And then they also talk about, after they say Geronimo, and everybody spills down from the ceiling.
Right, which people don't say that.
Krista?
It's racist.
How is it racist? Because it's been used in the last
Because
Doctor.
Geronimo is a real person,
Yeah.
and his name does not need to be shouted by white Brits charging into "quote-unquote" battle.
There you
Well,
go, guys.
they did.
This podcast is educational as well.
And then they talk about calling that our trio called the police, and Clara says to the doctor, "The police? We never do that. We should start doing that."
Yeah, God forbid.
And then we see our cyborg try and escape through this raising chair that was from the restaurant that dropped to the larder, starts going back.
The booth.
And then Peter Capaldi is holding onto this handle conveniently
Located under the chair for no reason.
And I wrote down, I don't believe Capaldi can do a chin-up.
Which he doesn't from that point on. I mean, even
To be fair to Capaldi, I also cannot do a chin-up.
Right. So, but
I
we
can do one.
we haven't seen the arms, we haven't seen the torso, but he does in the final scene. I mean, these final scenes with him and the guy's saying, "You're stronger than you look."
This may explain the
chin-up.
It's fair, they wrote it in. They
Yeah.
realized that no one was good. They realized no one believed this scene.
We better
run a line.
There you go. So then all of a sudden they're back in the restaurant.
And the doctor's there again.
And the doctor's there again. I guess he snuck out from under this massive, he did a loop up or a reverse backflip from his chin up or something and ended up in the chair. Whatever. And then he's
or they didn't notice when they got into the restaurant.
Yeah, right.
That underneath their table was no floor.
Sure. Anyway, so then Peter Capaldi's
unclear.
sitting in the room with a decanter of whiskey or some sort of spirit. And he says, "I've got the horrible feeling I'm going to have to kill you. I thought you might appreciate a drink first. I know I would."
Which I would like that if somebody.
I
would
want
that
the last
final
drink,
right?
Final drink, yeah.
And preferably whiskey. That's a personal input.
or sparkling white,
Or
champagne.
I'm gonna go with
Champagne.
The entire bottle.
I don't know what I'm gonna go with. Probably. I'm gonna go with the Angel's Envy bourbon in rum,
cast.
aged in rum casks, which is
Nice.
the best thing, and I'm really hoping that I'm getting more of it this weekend. Anyways, it's then we find out that the robots are from the 51st century, and then their escape pod is powered by skin. They're going to escape.
Yeah,
Through a
what
balloon.
was that?
They
balloon
made
made
a
of skin.
hot
Air balloon made of skin.
Out
I
of
mean,
skin.
how far are they going to really get with that?
Gross.
That's my question.
Well,
are they going to
they're-
get like back? Is this a time travel method with skin now, or
I
like
don't
I don't
understand
feel like
this
it was
at all.
going far
Yeah.
anyway. So they whatever, their skin, that doesn't make any sense.
The doctor pulls out these weird electronic chips, which are labeled the SS Marie Antoinette. Now, I do not remember what that means at all.
So I think what I understood, or I think read, was that this is a reference to, again, the episode of the girl in the fireplace, and I think that ship was called the SS Madame de Pompadour. So I think this one is the sister ship of the SS Madame de Pompadour, and it's the Madame Marie Antoinette.
Yeah.
So I think this is like a sister ship, and that's supposed to be somehow the explanation of how these robot android things exist. And then
That was lost on me.
Yeah.
and then they have some sort of discussion in the doorway about how, like, you realize one of us is lying, and they talk about the promised land.
The cyborg keeps asking him, how would you
kill me?
Before they have this confrontation in the completely open area of the hot air balloon.
Yeah, the sliding doors, as you have.
And then next thing we know, the
He's been
cyborg
pierced.
is skewered on
yes.
what I think is the tower, or the Clock of London, or Big Ben. I think.
Well, yeah,
something.
they do. No, well, there's the whole "you are a broom" talk, and says if you replace the handle and then you replace the bristles, is it still the same broom?
It serves the same purpose.
And then he says you can still sweep with it, and that's when he says the metaphor's lost and never mind.
Right.
And asks him if he can even remember where he got that face from.
And holds up the platter.
Yeah.
So that you see both
Oh,
him
They
right,
both
holding
yeah.
have a
right.
reflection.
So saying, holding it up so that both the cyborg has this reflection, but also you can see Peter Capaldi looking at his own face in the mirror and making these comments about
The
can you and he's talking to himself as well. He's saying,
a
can you even
parallel,
remember where this face came
absolutely.
from?
There's a lot of this episode where everything Peter Capaldi says is something that could be turned completely around and be a question he asks to himself. Everybody else, our other characters, are all fighting in the larder and holding their breath so that the robots think they're not alive. So, defense tactic against robots.
Hold your breath. And did you find you held your breath? I did.
No, I didn't.
No.
I was like, can I hold my breath as long as them? Oh,
No, you can't. That was a long...
I tried.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So
Oh, there's this little romance scene during the fight.
Oh, right. So
Where they share oxygen,
Madame
which-
Vastra says, I can
Oh, they
retain
smooch.
oxygen in my lungs, and so she
There's a lady kiss moment.
lady kisses her
Lizard
wife,
lady.
Jenny.
Lizard lady, but a
And
lady lizard.
meanwhile-
lady lizard.
Lady lizard
Meanwhile,
lady.
Strax, the Sontaran, is left on his own,
No kissing for him.
as is Clara, and everybody's about to kill them when then they all just collapse.
Yes,
Because Master Cyborg has been skewered.
Skewered.
well,
Now-
And
now that
therefore,
was-
he's like the control,
Yeah, so
and all
we-
the other cyborgs fail.
And I just have to say about that scene, so he gets skewered through what is presumably the heart, but I mean, so this guy's like a cyborg or android? I mean, does he, like, is that how you kill an android? You just pierce him in the heart? Or,
well,
you
it
think they'd be
doesn't.
more-
It's not really relevant because he's
dead, sure.
He's dead, and they all go back to their ways. The doctor's disappeared. His TARDIS is gone, and then it reappears, and Clara walks into it,
And then she says, you've redecorated, I don't like it.
yeah. When the Doctor regenerates, there's always a new interior for the TARDIS,
Right.
which is why he makes the comment about
Circles on the walls.
how he also doesn't like it and he wishes there were more round things.
Right.
And then we get the premise, I think, for what's going to be the next season, which is it's been 2,000 years and not all of it was good. It's about time that I did something about that. He says he's not her boyfriend. I wrote that down.
Oh,
And then he flips open his jacket. When you see it's got this
the
great
red
lining.
Who
And I
doesn't
want
love
that
a
jacket.
good lining?
I want Peter Capaldi's jacket. And
Me
I know...
too.
I'm going to give you my little bit of a nerd alert. I have a recreation jacket from Jack Harkness, the captain from Torchwood, who you don't know who that is, but it's pretty nerdy. And then there's the dumb scene that I really hated the most in this entire episode where Matt Smith calls Clara.
Oh, yes.
What was
Yeah.
that? The whole like
Her
romantic
cell phone
ties
goes
at the
off,
end.
and I think he says something like, "You better get that." And
Is
then
it your
he goes
boyfriend?
out. It might be your boyfriend or something. And then she goes out and she answers a call from Matt Smith. Presumably he says he's still in Transalore and he's about to change.
Yeah.
He's about to regenerate, and he explains like he's going to regenerate. And he says,
Well, and he says the next doctor is going to be really scared. And
Can
the
be
thing...
more confused than you
needs
are.
her help.
more
Which the
scared.
thing is, when the doctors regenerate, they're all different. So they all have different feelings, and they all have different whatevers. And this doctor had just come off winning a huge, like, universe-ending battle. So there's no reason to think he wouldn't regenerate into someone confident. Or
Hopefully.
he has no idea. So him saying it was scary, it just made no sense to me.
but that whole scene was unnecessary. I feel like it was like you just need an opening scene with 30 seconds to say this is what previously on Doctor Who, and show him regenerated, and that's it. Anyway, he
But
showed it.
Peter Capaldi, near the end of the season, near the end of this show, has this big talk with Clara where he says, "Just see me for who I am and not the person that I was and what I've
It
changed
was like
into."
super Notting Hill at that point. Did anyone else think that?
Well, the speech that he gives, I kind of thought, and there have always been rumors whenever they recast the Doctor that there's going to be a black actor playing the Doctor or a woman playing the Doctor, which has never happened. And so this speech about accepting me as I am and like how different I am, it seemed to me...
The groundwork? Fuck yeah.
It almost didn't feel like they laid out the groundwork. It felt like they wasted that scene.
Oh.
It felt like that, the way that was written, Peter Capaldi's character could have been played by a female actress delivering that speech and just being like, I'm still the same person. It's just my body has changed. So this whole speech that Peter Capaldi gives, where he talks about me being me and it doesn't matter what I look like or who I am, just felt very much like it could have been... It was written for any actor rather than just Peter Capaldi.
Yeah.
And then she hugs him. He says, I'm
does
not
not
a
hug her
hugging
back.
person. Says, I don't think I'm a hugging person now.
I don't
Yeah.
think I'm a hugging person now.
No one.
And then he does the most awkward walk I've ever seen away. And then we get our little coda at the end, which is
Coda, I love it.
our cyborg comes back to life, and he makes his little clicky sounds and
heaven.
puts on his top hat.
Yeah.
And then she gets some
And then
squishy umbrella sounds.
Someone's sitting down. It's a lady, and she sits up and she says, "I'm Missy. You've made it." He says,
My
"I don't-
boyfriend
my
sent
boyfriend
you.
sent you. You made it." And
she says that he's one of the older faces, which makes it seem they do some things where what we're seeing may not be the same time period. It could be 2 doctors later.
Right.
She may have met the next 2 doctors after this doctor, or she could have met him 10 years from now. So we don't know what time or place this is in. All we know is that Missy sort of ends the episode with saying, "Welcome to heaven."
welcome to heaven, welcome to paradise, and then
I will now dance around with my umbrella.
yeah,
Slash
basically,
brawling.
and just not really explaining very much at all. And the thing that's interesting to note is if you've seen that episode, I forget the name of it. It's the episode where Amy and Rory, where Amy gets old and they have to leave her behind.
Right.
And there's the garden scene, and there's also cyborg robots in there. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah, I do.
Right. So they go to this planet where there's sort of been like some sort of, I guess, plague or an infestation or something, and so they're well-meaning robots that are trying to quarantine people, but the quarantine is a kindness that will kill you if you're a human. I mean, maybe it's just them reusing sets, but I don't know if that's intentional. It looks like the same garden to me.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Oh,
that's the only reason I'm bringing that up.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of links in this, so I think...
it could just be them using the set again. It could just, or it could
I doubt
be
I don't think they do that.
link.
So I think any Doctor Who...
But remember, like, there was all these pleasant scenes in there, right? There was, like, this beautiful garden, and really it was, like, a very pleasant place to be as long as you were able to tolerate these robots that tried to quarantine you.
That's true.
So, is that heaven? ...
So that ends the episode. And thank you, Fiona, for being our Lady Doctor expert. Anyway, thank you for coming and talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
People who want to complain about how wrong we are can write to us at cyborgversusrobot@gmail.com and find us on Facebook under the same name, and Twitter
Cyborg versus Robot
as well. And Fiona, do you want to tell people where they can find you, or do you want them to never find you?
Do you want hate mail?
I kind of gave it away, didn't I? When I sort of said where... Anyway.
Not really.
No.
Not really.
We can make you hard to find.
So, this is the end of the episode, and I think everyone knows how we want to end it. From Cyborg versus Robot.
Fuckity bye.
We're gonna put you through a Scottish filter.
Yeah.
Squish!
Oh, just like that. See, that was the filter. And,
no,
but no, both of you. No, not okay. Not okay.